I would like to introduce Eva. The first time I met her, she'd actually sent me one particular assessment, to do, and I filled it out thinking, okay, maybe it's just one of those, just another one of those. And then when I went across to meet Vinay and her, I mean, I was blown away because these people, on the basis of, what I had filled in, I mean, they knew things that nobody else knew. And I'm like, how is this even possible? And she's like, you know what? Because that's exactly what we do. So it like totally, blew me away. And, I was like, wow, this is just fantastic. And of course, ever since then, I've been recommending her everywhere. And Vinny and her both actually do, magic. So by qualification, of course, she's an MTech and she went to Harvard University and now is positioned as a workplace behavioral expert and is absolutely fantastic at what she does. She's been doing it now for the last 6 years. Co-founded the company, which is called the Predictive Strategy Group, TPSG, for all of us who have known her and BNI all these years. And along with Vinay, they run the company together. And she's not only a practitioner of psychometric science, but works as an evangelist. Both she and her husband have changed their careers 180 degrees just because of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and through psychometric assessments, they realize that is their true calling, and they can help in making the world a better place. So, based out of Gurgaon, clients all over India, some illustrious clients in your client list, and I know a lot of your clients will be joining and watching later as well. So,
Yes.
welcome, Eva. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on Let's Chat with GB. And
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. It's immense pleasure to be part of Chat with GB, and thank you so much for this platform.
So, jumping into it, straight away, Eva, what is psychometric assessments for the workplace?
Wonderful. So, okay. So, psychometric assessment is a very broad term now. Now, if we talk about psychometric assessment in a layman term, psychometric assessment is basically like an X-ray, right? So, what is the use of an X-ray? If we'll see in a common man language, X-ray helps us to see that those parts of your body which are otherwise not visible, correct? Mm-hmm. Similarly, psychometric assessment, the scientific tools like these are the X-rays of human subconscious mind. It helps us to understand those innate competencies of any individual, which otherwise you can never understand, just by meeting, just by talking, and even, after working with somebody. Right? Unless and until you have worked with somebody for years and years. So this is the power of this science which give you this information, which helps you to take. And so if you talk about, what is psychometric at workplace? Psychometric at workplace helps the employer and the organizations to basically take an informed decision about any individual, whether that person is fitting into the overall culture of the organization, whether this person is fitting into the role that you are looking for. It gives you insights and projections about your existing people, like whom to groom, as a future leader, as a future manager. So this is in a nutshell, if you talk about, what is psychometric at workplace. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think I love the fact how you compared it to an X-ray, and you said that this is, primarily, can
Absolutely,
be equated.
It's an X-ray.
So what are the different kinds of assessments, that are normally used or can be used by an organization that's looking to get talent? Because I think now it's going to be, very, very important for organizations to be very judicious about, who they hire, how they hire, how many, how much resources they allocate towards that hire. So what are some of the different kinds of assessments that are actually there?
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful question. So, if we talk about psychometric, there are n number of different assessments that comes under this umbrella of psychometric. But if we're talking about from the workplace per se, there are certain assessments which has been designed specifically for the organizations so that they can, use these assessments for, taking decisions about their people. So we'll be talking about 3 assessments today. One is a behavioral assessment. Second, cognitive assessment, and third is an emotional assessment, which is also called the EQ. So to start off with, I'll pick the behavioral assessment first, and this is the assessment that you have done, Gaurav, yourself. And so behavioral assessment is basically the most important one because it helps us to understand, in a layman term, what you call is the attitude of that person. What are the natural working styles of an individual? And if, you are using behavioral assessment at workplace, be it as a part of your hiring process, you will get, these kind of insights about any individual even without meeting them, using these online assessments. Now, if I'm talking about behavioral assessment, what all kind of competencies here I'm talking about? The competencies like whether this person is a social oriented person or an analytical person. This person is an out of box thinker, or he loves to do the work in a more structured, in a more process way, right? The person is comfortable with the ambiguity, which is at present like a lot of ambiguity around, in the organization, in the world, in the businesses. So who are those people who are comfortable with the ambiguities? Vis-a-vis people who want to follow the by the book approach. These are the kind of, behavioral competences I'm talking about. So let's take an example here to understand, more about this, because that's the sense of it. For example, for an accounts role, the key competency which is required for that role is a great eye for detail, right? To follow the structure and compliance. You cannot, miss upon these competencies, even if the person is having a fabulous qualification. Vis-a-vis, if you talk about the sales people, Gaurav, you interact a lot of people, sales people day in, day out. Now you understand how they work with the ambiguities. One day client is saying something, the owner is saying something, business environment is asking for something. So, but they should comfortable. They should be, comfortable with the troubleshooting, firefighting, which happen like day in, day out, which is not at all required for accountant. Absolutely.
Right.
It's a highly stable job.
Have to always think on their salespeople, always thinking on their feet, and they always have to be
absolutely. Now, these are the things you cannot teach someone. Like how can be you on your feet all the time? These are the flair that somebody is having. Absolutely, they can improve on these skills. But these are the flair, the natural flair that somebody is having. So this is all about the behavioral assessment we are talking about here.
Right.
Now, second, it is also called the personality assessment. So both these terms can be changed, interchangeably. The second comes as a cognitive assessment. So now cognitive assessment is absolutely not the IQ of an individual, right? It is very, very different. So cognitive talks about the learning agility, how fast a person is in terms of grasping the new methodologies, new strategies, things which are coming on the way, right? So this is called the learning agility. Now, to explain cognitive assessment in little more detail, I'll take an example. For example, as an employer, you are recruiting a person from IIMs, right? IIM graduate. You have two people, right? From the IIM, same IIM. Let's talk about IIM, Ahmedabad. Now, for you, both of these must be having the same kind of, cognitive abilities, because both of them have cracked the CAT examination. They have, qualified your series of interviews, and now they're coming for the final round of interview. Correct?
Right.
But it is not like that. Cognitive agility, the person who is highly agile, we never know that who has attempted CAT and cracked it in the first attempt, and who is prepared for the CAT for several, maybe 2, 3, 4 years. Who is that person who needs to sit on one thing for hours? And who is that person who wants to, just get a gist of things, and he's like on his feet to, run that. Right? So this is all about the cognitive agility, how fast, how agile the person is. And if you combine the behavioral and cognitive assessment, research says that you can improve your predictability with respect to the role by at least 70%. Now, cognitive doesn't mean that all the roles require high cognitive abilities. It again depends on the role, the job role inside the organization we are talking about. So like in a layman term, if you talk about the marketing people, the sales people, the CEOs, they must have a high cognitive, high agility, as compared to a person who is working on operations, because he is not exposed to new strategies day in, day out.
Right, true. Right, true.
And third, last but not the least, what I'm going to talk about here is emotional intelligence, which is also called EQ, which is fairly new in India. But, I love to explain EQ in this way that, your behaviors is something which is your hardware, right? Which you cannot change. You don't have scope to change your hardware. But EQ is something which is a software inside that hardware. So, for example, maybe you are not a socially oriented person, but you have a great interpersonal skills, which comes under the umbrella of EQ. Right? What is the level of empathy that you are having? Now in an organization, we are talking about empathy all the time. Can we develop empathy in somebody? Right? So this is all about, EQ and emotional intelligence. Like, what are the level of your stress tolerance? What is your impulse control? What is your understanding about, your own emotions? So there are certain parameters on which we assess the individual first. Second, to see where you are already good at and what are those things which are, lacking in your body. It's like vitamin B, C, D, right? Until you are not aware about that, how you can improve on that? So unlike behaviors, EQ can be improved with right interventions. This is a buzzword in the town today that everybody is talking about EQ, but we hardly knows what is the EQ. So these are the scientific tools, the online assessments on the basis of which you can basically predict the performance. So I would again say we are talking everything with respect to the job. In isolation, everyone is wonderful. Yeah. But it's about the role in which you are fitting in. Either you are a match, if you are fit, or a gap there. So right. This is about the different kind of assessments specifically for the workplace and organizations.
Awesome. And I totally get why the EQ assessment is perhaps, right now the talk of the town or the most sought after, because I think in conditions such as these, I think, empathy is playing a very important part. Even when we're talking about sales, people are saying, what is the most important property in sales?
It's the empathy.
Like, yes, it's empathy right now. It's empathy. Relationships. So these two things are extremely important. And I know that, going forward, the requirement for something like this is just going to explode.
Absolutely. It will rise just exponentially.
Right. So tell me, what are the 3 biggest benefits that an organization can get by using the different assessments?
Only 3? Okay, I will put it into 3 only now. Okay, Gaurav, tell me about your organization. If I will increase your top performers or multiply your top performers, what will happen to the overall organization?
Or we'll go like 10x, right? So if we say 10X. That it's the 10x.
10x.
Yeah, it would just explode, right? So yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, if we increase the top performers in any organization, you can increase the productivity by 10x. But now question here is how to understand who are your top performers. We know that this person is doing good, so that is why he is my top performer. But right. Let me ask one question here. When you hired 4 people, you saw the experience, you saw the qualification, you run them through the series of tests, interviews, everything. Now they are inside the organization and working together as a team or as in individual capacity. Now out of these 4 people, some people will perform really good and some are not. So what are those things which are differentiating the top performers from the bottom performers? And trust me, research says that it's only about the cognitive levels, about the behaviors, about the attitude that the person is having, which is differentiating them from rest of the population in the organization. So one biggest benefit is first to understand these things about your top performers, so that next time when you are hiring and when you are assessing your prospect candidates, you can see that is it really matching somewhere to my top performers? Right? So one biggest benefit is this, where you can immediately increase the productivity. Second comes to the cost of bad hire. Many surveys, we have seen that the cost of attrition for any organization can be like 50% to 500% to the actual cost of that employee to the organization. But if you're now talking about cost of bad hire, it can be further maybe 10 times more than the cost of attrition. Now, if I'm talking about, bad hire, that doesn't mean absolutely the bad person. But what we are talking about here is a person not in the right role. And definitely it will bring stress, right, in that person. What will happen? One bad hire in the organization will make your 10 good people, out of the organization. Right? Nobody wants that, right? So this is a kind of benefit that any organization can get when use this information at the time of taking a decision about any person, so that that informed decision can help you where to put that person in, so that you can get maximum out of that person. Now, third aspect, which I will talk about, which is as simple as that, is a time, cost, and effort that management is spending in meeting and interviewing the people, right? So management is here to strategize, to further take the business at the next level, right? Not to meet people every now and then. So for example, if you have 20 people who have applied for a role, and after the first screening maybe you have 15 people or 12 people, then the normal process says that we need to interview those 12, 15 people. Now you see the time of effort which is going into that, right? Whereas if you're using some kind of scientific tools which are very well validated and reliable, and using insights from them, maybe you need to interview only 5 to 6 people who can actually be a fit to your organization, right? So this is a time and effort that you can save by doing a structured interview rather than having just like that, the way we are doing the things. Not everyone, many organizations are already using it. So these are the 3 benefits. One, increasing your top performers, increasing the productivity. Second, decrease the cost, and the cost of your bad hire. Third, save on the time and effort. So for example, I'll tell you a small story of 1 minute. If 12 years back, this power of psychometric science was there with my first employer where I started working after completing my master's in software, they would have never hired me, because my competencies are nowhere close to what required for a software developer, a person who has a highly technical bent of mind. But what happened, I worked there a couple of years, they invested on me, they trained me, and eventually I left the organization. And this is what is happening today. So these are the benefits which any organization can get when they are doing things in a more scientific way.
Awesome. I think, and that is just, again, like I said, so critical, in today's time. I'm sure you'll have even more benefits, and maybe later on we can take on more benefits depending on how we do for time. And of course, in the end, we open it up to questions from the room. So might be some questions from the room as well. But let's bring up another poll. And now that you've explained this, let me bring up a poll for everyone else who's here. Had you heard of the concept of psychometric assessments in hiring before? So let's just see what people are feeling and thinking, and what they're even aware. So okay, again, we've got the answers coming in thick and fast. So straight away we have 60% of the audience that has already voted, and very mixed. So we'll give it another 5 to 10 seconds, and then we'll close this poll as well as we get closer to the 85% mark. So currently we have 73% of everyone who's actually voted. Awesome. So now we have 85% who's voted. So I'm now going to close this poll and publish the results as well. Okay. So that should be now visible for all. So we had 46% who's actually quite aware. So you have a very informed audience that's actually joining us today. You had 32% who were somewhat aware. So they knew that, okay, the concept is, there. And I'm sure once you clarified, it's of course made it a lot easier. I think otherwise the numbers would have been, much higher than not at all aware and the somewhat aware. But I think in your explanation, you made it very clear for everyone. And then of course, not at all aware was, 22%. So that is, again, the mix of, what we actually have today. So, and I'll bring up one more poll. And this is, pertaining to the usage of psychometric assessments in hiring. So I will now publish that poll as well, and I bring that up now. So are you using psychometric assessment tools in hiring? Yes, no, but I would like to, or unsure as of now. So let's see how that one plays out. Okay, again, the answers are coming in thick and fast. We have 48 people who are here with us today, and 50% have already voted. Awesome. 80% have voted. I'll give another 5 seconds and then I'll close this poll as well. All right, lovely. So I'm going to end this poll and I'll publish the results of this one as well. So 57% is, not using it, but they would like to. And I think perhaps it was maybe a combination of not having, the knowledge or, whom to go to. And that's what we try and do at these sessions, like let's, chat with GBs, where we bring on experts who, can help the community. So 57%, would like to, 26% are already using it, and 17% are unsure as of right now. So that is what, everyone's.
Maybe they'll get a shorty by the end of.
So Eva, tell me this, I mean, you said these are just 3 of the many benefits, and why is it that, so few organizations in India are actually using psychometric assessments?
Okay. So, Gaurav, in US and in Europe, I'll start with, this thing that is science, the science of psychometric, behavioral science, this is like almost 7, 8 decades old. And this is the time, these organizations are using it. But in India, if you will see, the economy actually opened in 1990s. So one of the obvious reason is that we are late starters, in terms of, starting the businesses and economy. Second reason towards this is the natural adoption rate. In India, if you will see, the natural adoption rate of any technology, any automation, is pretty less. Even if we'll talk about, seat belts or helmets, which is like no brainer. Everybody knows that it is fabulous. This is for us. But, if we'll talk about 5 years back, how many of us were using that? We were absolutely aware about the benefits that we can get out of that, but still we were not using. But today, everybody is using it. So this is a natural adoption rate, which is pretty low in India. But, everything said and done, in India also, if you talk about MNCs, it's like more than 80% of the MNCs who are already using some of the other tools in terms of, doing the selection, doing the promotions, team buildings, XYZ. But for, SMEs, what I have seen, so 6 years back when we started this, it was actually the concept that I was selling. So people were like, oh, really? Is there something like this exists? Which tells us about our people? No, who better than us can tell about our people? So it was absolutely at the concept level. But in past 2-3 years, what we have seen is the graph of, the SMEs using this science has increased exponentially. And one of the reasons is now they're getting exposure to it. Second and third generations are coming in, and they have, got education from Harvard or, top big business schools where they're exposed to this science. So one reason is that they are now absorbing this technology. They want to understand, how this science can benefit them. So recently, in past 1 year, we have entered the tier 2 cities like Ludhiana and Jaipur, where most of the SMEs are there. I mean, all the SMEs are there, and they are very open to at least understand this concept. And today, if they are understanding, they will definitely adopt that also. So many of them are now on board using this science, and they're so happy about it. And in past 5 years, if in India you will see, we have done more than 2 lakh assessments only in India. So I agree that still there is a lot more that we can do in India about psychometric. But yes, the graph is increasing. So that's the good part of it.
Awesome. Again, I love how you made it sound so simple as using seat belts, and so just like how people got around to that, it's only a matter of time is what you mentioned.
This is just a matter of time. Correct.
And people will realize, and of course, being one of the early movers, I'm sure that's very, very good for you. Absolutely. So tell me now, with the entire post-COVID scenario that we're now kind of heading into, or the post-lockdown scenario at least, there's going to be a lot of focus on work from home. There's going to be, I know I've been seeing some large organizations that have been saying that, hey, we're open to having as many as 25% of our workforce now actually work from home. So now in this new evolving scenario, what role do you see psychometrics and psychometric testing in particular playing in this scenario now?
Yes, so we have already starting a lot of queries around psychometric, this post-COVID thing. This is a concept of remote working, which is now coming like anything. And, Gaurav, otherwise also, if you will see, let's not talk about COVID, in organizations, why teams could not perform together. The one and the sole reason around this is a communication gap. Right? And why this is so? Because because we see the things with our own colored glasses. We perceive the things in a very subjective way, right? So there is a lot of subjectivity around it. Now, till now we are working together. We are meeting everyone. We are doing the meetings face to face, meeting every day, and still that question was there. The communication gap, the empathy factor was missing. But now post COVID, this communication gap will increase from this to this. Because now organizations are getting into restructurings, teams are getting restructures, the roles are diversified. You're working with most of your team members, maybe you have never met. Your boss, maybe you have never met. Now, how to understand their language? You're interacting either through the Zoom calls, emails, telephonic, where, the body language, the complete tonality of the conversation is missing. So now in today's scenario, this is not a good thing to have. This is a must to have. So for example, Gaurav, let me come back to both of us. If both of us has to work together in a team, seeing your psychometric assessment and your behavioral competences, you're a highly analytical person. Am I right on it?
Of course, yeah.
Right? So analytical, as well as you talk about numbers, data, which where you are most comfortable. Right? So if I have to work along with you and I have to come for a meeting to Gaurav, then my approach should be like, first I should send a formal invite. Second, if I'm coming with an idea, then my idea should be supported by data, facts, figures, little homework around it, not like loud talking, which, I can do when I'm going to have a meeting with you. Now,
Right.
if we are working remotely and we are having this kind of information, you can see, the same thing which can become a stumbling block can become a synergy. Similarly, if you have to work with me and you have, these kind of things about me, you will see that there is no need to send a mail to Eva. I can just call him at like 11 p.m. at night. She'll be more than comfortable. I don't know if you are comfortable or not, but she'll be comfortable about it. So
Yeah.
I'm a loud talker. So if any idea I'm coming along, during the conversation, you will see that she is not somebody who is superficial, but she is a loud thinker. So these are the kind of insights if you are having conversations, meetings over Zoom, and if you have this kind of data, see what is the level of collaboration and what is the kind of synergies that you can bring in your teams. One is that all of you are speaking the same language,
True.
right? And other thing around working remotely and working most effectively is, there is the methodology on which we work. There is a special feature, and one of my client, who is again an SME client and is so open to new ideas, there is a one-to-one relationship guide where, we get the data of two people and we can get a one-to-one relationship guide. So what he has done is, in the entire organization with the teams, he has distributed this one-to-one relationship guide. So now onwards, you are going to interact with each other, even with the MD of the organization, with this data. Now, see how smooth the things will be. So now this is a need of the hour, and this can only be achieved with the use of scientific tools, which is present today. So why not to use this to make effective communication, between the team members with whom you have never met. Many organizations are already doing it, but
Yeah.
yet a lot more to do around, in this space.
Awesome. And for everyone who's listening in, I know there's 48 of us who are here on the call right now, and of course, a lot more are going to see this later. Your thoughts in terms of, put in the chat, how is Eva doing? Put in the chats in terms of, what do you think of her insights? Let her also, see the appreciation and the love that you have for her. Use the chat box, for typing in your thoughts in terms of what she's been saying. Do you think it's, awesome? Do you think it's amazing? Just type that in the chat box so that, she could see that as well. Yeah. So Ajay says it's an excellent idea. Arjun says it's a very practical talk. So yes, 100%. Can connect with what Eva is saying. Yes, Mohit, I absolutely agree. Neeraj thinks it's amazing. And Ravi says, excellent ideas. Ajay says, would love to know more. And okay, in fact, we're definitely going to have, Eva post her email ID and her website address, etc. here as well. So the people who want to get in touch with her later, can definitely do that. So, and of course, she'll open it up for Q&A in the latter part as well. So, Eva, I have another question for you. So I'm curious to know about, some of the upcoming trends in hiring. And, would psychometric assessments have a role to play in the letting go of employees as well? Like all this while we've been talking about the hiring.
Yes.
Now when let's say when money is, well, even if it's not, but let's assume for a while that, money becomes a constraint. And
Yes.
someone says, what, I need to reevaluate. Maybe I need to let some people go. Maybe I need to bring, some fresh talent on. So maybe there's time for churn. So your thoughts on A, what is, some of the new trends, and B, can psychometric testing even assist in letting us know when it's time to let someone go?
Very tough thing. So, hearing these words like letting somebody go is itself, the most difficult thing for any organization also. Firing and letting somebody go is really tough. So, we have talked about hiring, how difficult, how critical it is for any employer to get right people on board, getting their time, effort, money involved in the hiring process. And now if they're stuck in a situation where they actually need to goodbye to some of their people, which they really don't want to do, but they have
Right.
to do,
Right.
it's very difficult. It's so, it's a kind of depressing state for them as well. But everything said and done, I would say that if there is a need to, say goodbye to some of your people, don't do it with your subjectivity and your gut feel. Get objective data about those people. One, so that you can, maybe, so there's a word that I like, is a like versus need, right? So sometimes we like some people a lot, but actually the need of the organization is something which is different. And this
Right.
is where, psychometric or, scientific tools comes into picture, because they are not seeing whether you are liking, because some people are highly likable. It's their core competence to be liked by the majority of the people in the organization. So
Right.
it's not that you are firing and saying goodbye to people on the basis of your subjectivity, but to
Right.
see what are those competencies of these people who can help you, post COVID, not only to survive in this environment but to thrive. People who are highly agile, highly independent in their approach, who can, proactive, always on their feet. So these are the things which, if a person, so one of my clients, they're already saying that we are saying goodbye to some of the people who are like already on bench, mostly in the tech companies, right?
Right.
So now, so they're already clients. So what they are doing is they are getting this data from their people and seeing, is there any bunch of people, are there people on those, the bench people who can, fit in the roles post COVID, so that they can, again, we are saying that hiring, we need to take an informed decision. Firing, it's absolutely even more required to take an informed decision. First thing is that, and second, maybe you need these people again. So you must be aware about, what are those things which can get them back to work, post COVID, when things will be pretty much stable. And wonderful thing, which I guess, not a very common practice, but a wonderful practice. That's again one of my startup client who is already doing, is they are saying goodbye to people, but with the help of psychometric, they are actually helping them out to see for the future roles where they are best fitted in. One, they will get a good review on the Glassdoor, and also on a humanitarian grounds, right? So this is where, psychometric comes when we are talking about firing. And second, if we talk about the hiring trends post COVID, one thing which is most evident is the virtual interviews. Now, this is not a choice that you are having. This is a must do that you have to follow, post-COVID. Many articles are getting published on virtual interviews every day. And the only way to conduct these virtual interviews in a more structured way is to have data about that person, and then to conduct the interview and asking right questions, to that person, rather than, in most of the interviews you have seen all the questions, like similar kind of questions, similar kind of information, and then at the end of the day you're taking a decision on your gut feel. So
True.
now gut feel no more will work, because organizations are getting leaner, teams are shrinking. You need warriors. You don't want people who are like, okay, MNCs mein chalta hai, thoda bahut baitha rahega, chalega. But especially for the SMEs, it's very, very critical to have some data and to talk about that data. Har cheez mein hum data ki baat karte hain. But if we come about, this aspect, we are totally going with the subjectivity and the gut feel of the, entire process. So that is what which needs to be eliminated, and for which we need, certain processes around it.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. In fact, one of our friends in the HR space, I was having a conversation with him yesterday, and he says what he sees as far as the hiring trend that goes right now. He says you hire, a person, so you hire X, you pay him, what, let's say the value of, 1.5x, but you make him do the work now, or make her do the work of 4 people. So
Yes, yes.
that's what they actually
And
see happening going forward.
correct. So this is a wonderful that you have, bring in, is that you should know how to get work done from this person, right? What is the approach of getting best out of this person, right? So only by paying 1.5 times will not make him work harder or work more. But we need to, get into the shoe of the other person to understand what he really wants, what motivates him.
Right. So come back to then behavioral and the EQ piece comes
Absolutely.
all the way back then.
Absolutely.
Love it. So tell me, and after this, we can open it up to the room. So, all 47, 48 people are here. They can also then, ask you certain questions that come to their mind as well. But of course, you mentioned that, MNCs are far more, receptive and open. How about in the SME space? How's your experience been in the SME space? And A, in terms of levels of acceptance, and B, also, in terms of utility to the SME space. So what would be your thoughts on the SME space, so to speak?
Wonderful. So yes, so obviously the challenge for SME is little more as compared to MNCs, and one main reason for that is whenever I interact with the SME prospects or SME clients, उनकी पहली बात क्या होती है, हमें लोग ही नहीं मिलते, assess क्या करेंगे? So they have a very short funnel, right? So, and the reason behind this is it's difficult for them to attract the talent as compared to an MNC, because everybody wants to work in an MNC. But then absolutely that doesn't mean that जो भी आ रहा है उसको हम ले लेंगे, या जहाँ पे भी जरूरत है वहाँ ले लेंगे. The idea is to see that person in a holistic view and to optimize the talent. Now, the entire topic of this conversation is around talent optimization. To optimize what we are having. जो नहीं है वो तो नहीं है, but जो हमारे पास आ रहा है उसको हम most effective way में we can use it, right? So to understand that person, now first, how to onboard that person. Second, how to get work done from this person. So in my recent interaction with one of my clients, again in the SME space and a sort of family-driven business, there was a guy who applied for an operations role, kind of a 3-4 years of experience, and by using this behavioral assessment, the data which came out is that he is having that core competence of a salesperson. Now this is like operations versus sales, it's not easy to, make them believe that, okay, you take them for a sales role. But during the interview, I was also there, during the interview, they asked certain questions from that person. And Gaurav, you won't believe that person was so enthused about the sales. ऐसा लग रहा था कि उसको अभी तक मौका नहीं मिला है, but he is all set to do that, right? So this is one validation we did, at that time. And now you see, आप उस resource को, rather than putting them in operations, you can put them in sales and then send to GB training, so as to groom him as a better salesperson. Now this is the magic of psychometric, which SMEs are, some of them are using, some of are in the exploring stage, and some of are already not aware about this science. So this is about at the time when you are hiring. Second thing, which is again the biggest challenge, is क्या होता है, लाला कंपनी में आपके साथ 10-15 साल से कोई काम कर रहा है, and the person is fabulous, you are so happy with it. बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं, बहुत मजा आ रहा है आपको काम करने में, लेकिन the main concern of that MD is, यार अब इतने साल काम करते हुए हो गए हैं, तो अब independent हो जाओ ना. Now suddenly you become a manager and start handling teams, bigger teams. Right. You see the person who has worked for 10-15 years in an individual capacity, like a single man army, how suddenly he will be able to handle teams one day, just because he has spent 10-15 years with that person? It cannot happen this way. Now, one is a wrong expectation that you are setting, right? Yep. तो वो क्या करते थे, जब भी उसको टीम संभालने की बात करते थे, he was reluctant. He was like, I am happy with it. And he was like, कोई aspiration ही नहीं है. सबकी एस्पिरेशन टीम संभालने की नहीं होती ना, किसी की एस्पिरेशन परफेक्टली काम करने की भी हो सकती है. So this is what we need to understand when you are promoting people, especially in a SME culture, organizations which is closely knit, right? To see, आप ऑफिस आते हो, आपको लगता है इतनी भसड़ चल रही है, इतनी फायर फाइटिंग चल रही है, कोई ऐसा बंदा नहीं है जिसको मैं उठा के बोल दूं. लोग हैं, पहचानने की जरूरत है. Right, so that when next time you are coming to office and you say, "यार ये भसड़ हो रही है, संभालो." And trust me, Gaurav, there are certain people who are happy, handling this kind of bhasad and troubleshooting only. उनको मजा ही तभी आता है. So you need to identify those people, and when actually we do these kind of things, analysis, they kind of their acceptability increases, because this is a language that they understand, in a SME culture. So, this is, how we are working with them, how the acceptability lies in, and how in, post-COVID, the things will, become even, more evident that they have to use, something like this, something or the other thing.
Right. Yeah, awesome. I think, and when you were just giving that story, I just realized that I was having a conversation with a very large client of ours. and they're of course calling the GBA to help their sales team. And he mentioned exactly the same thing. He said there was someone who was a great performer in an individual role, but as soon as we're promoting them to management and to managers, it's just collapsing. And he's saying so frustrating, and I think you just hit the nail on the head, right? That's exactly what you just mentioned.
Absolutely. And this is the biggest challenge, which you can see how easy it is to resolve. Just you need to use the technology which is already existing.
Right. And put the right people in the right places.
And everything said and done, मछली को आप तैरने के लिए बोलोगे, उड़ने के लिए मत बोलो. Right? So there is that saying that, if you are judging the ability of a fish to climb the tree, then it will live its whole life to do how stupid it is. So that's the essence of everything.
Love it.
Understand.
Yeah, thank you.